among other things, were reporting on a woman who had died and whose case was surrounded by secrecy and buried under layers of bureaucracy and paper. How did you get started on this, and how did you move it forward?
Our story came from a report from the Justice Department that said that it was in the middle of this 200-page report that was breaking down violence statistics in the United States, and it was talking about rape in the United States, and it said on like page 263 that 1 in 3 Native American women will be sexually assaulted in her lifetime. And I thought that just can't possibly be true, and it turns out that it is. So that's where the story started, but we knew that we were going to have to go to Native American reservations to do this story. And I think that in the beginning, we thought we were just going to show up and interview some people and have them tell us their stories, and then we would like pack up and go home and write a story about that. And it was, I think, the day that we arrived at Standing Rock Sioux Reservation in South Dakota, that we were there all of like maybe 12 minutes before we realized that was not going to happen. And we started off just, I think we had an idea that Amy Walters, my producer, and I had an idea that we were going to just make appointments and that we were just going to show up at the tribal council office and that the chief would be there and that we would interview them. And that's just not the way things work at Standing Rock Sioux. And I remember waiting outside of his office and talking to his administrators who were there working, and they were like, well, he's not even here today. And we said, but we had an appointment. And they said, but he's not here. He's like out on the ranch. And so we ended up realizing that you have to go from one person to the next person to the next person. And only then do people start letting you into their lives and introducing you to other people and trusting you and making the story come to life. But it was very challenging because you're an outsider and you're more of an outsider than you would be even trying to do this story in the middle of a city. And there's not a lot of trust, and there's not, people don't know you, and you don't know them, and you don't know where they're coming from, and they know that. And it just took a really long time to get people to open up to us. In the case of Leslie Ironroad, that story came up because everybody knew somebody who had been sexually assaulted, and everybody knew the story of this dead girl. And we couldn't find any record of her death with the police officers in Standing Rock. And that's because they never investigated the crime. They sent an officer to her hospital room who took notes about her death, and they went nowhere. This woman lived and died, and nobody ever took notice. So it seemed unbelievable to me that in this year in our country that a woman can die of sexual assault, and there is no case. It's not even that the case wasn't prosecuted or that the case, it had some twists and turns. There was no case. The woman simply died, and that was the end of it. So we took that charge to the chief of police in Standing Rock and presented him with that. And I think that's actually my favorite moment of the story is the 3 seconds of silence where he said, we said to him, he said, we investigate every sexual assault on Standing Rock. And he said, I'm sure this woman lived here, and I'm sure she probably died, but we have no record of that. And what can we do if people don't report their assault? And I said, she reported it to a Standing Rock police officer, and 3 seconds of silence, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on the radio, it's an eternity. And it was after that he said, like I said, we simply have no record of that case. So then we went and we tracked down the police officer. And he was very forthcoming. He had just resigned from the police department because he said that there were so many instances of sexual assault and abuse on the reservation that he simply couldn't take it anymore and that he had to resign. And he said it was like standing in the middle of the river trying to hold back the flood. And I thought that spoke volumes of what was happening on these reservations. And so it was with that, there is one person that can investigate these crimes, and that's the federal government. And what we found is that they're not doing that at all. So that was the impetus of our story. But at the end of it, after we spent a lot of time in North and South Dakota and a lot of time in Oklahoma, we were able to go to, after getting to know people, we finally got invited to things. And we were invited to a sweat lodge in Oklahoma. And that is it's like a dome where they put a fire in the middle, and it's really, really hot. And you go in there, and in this particular sweat lodge, it's for women to come and tell about their stories, and it's very spiritual, and it's incredibly private, and there's definitely no microphones in the sweat lodge. But because we had gotten to know some of these women and some of these people, they allowed us to tape record some of what was going on and to talk about it a little bit. And I think we actually have the clip. That would be great if we could play it. But I just want to say one thing about the sweat lodge first, is that I was 7 months pregnant at the time. And it is really, I mean, when I say it's hot, it is really hot in these sweat lodges. And we were in this thing, and I'm thinking, you're not supposed to be in saunas. I don't think this is just like a sauna. I don't know. I'm not sure, but this really feels like a sauna. And Amy Walters, God bless you, stuck it out for 4 hours in this sweat lodge. And if it were not for that, we would not have gotten the tape that we did coming out of that, because you are all sharing your stories, and you're all talking to the ancestors. And I had to leave and step outside, and Amy stuck it out through the whole thing. And, you know, there's nothing like at 1 o'clock in the morning seeing your half undressed producer on somebody's lawn with a hose, you know, cooling herself down afterwards. But truly dedication. It was truly dedication as far as a producer goes. So anyway.